Today's sci-fi share is a film called Hombre, Mirando al Sudeste. English title, Man Facing Southeast. This is a 1986 film that came out of Argentina. I first watched this film some years back, and then later on, I was happy to find it and add it to my own collection. So I knew at some point I will be definitely sharing and talking about this film foreseeable. Let me just dive right into a brief rundown. Dr. Julio Dennis is a psychiatrist that is based at the Jose Borda Psychiatric Hospital. He is assigned to the ward in the hospital for nonviolent delusional cases. One day, Dennis is surprised to learn from one of the staff that the patient count is one higher than it should be for his ward. He checks on the list of patients that he's aware of and finally discovers the new unknown patient as he is playing an organ beautifully. Dennis has the patient come to his office later and comes to learn that the patient calls himself Runtus. Runtus states he is a projection from light years away. He is on Earth to study humans and their behavior. There are aspects that his people just do not comprehend and would like to gain understanding on. And while he and others like him have been sent to Earth in this fashion, they do not experience emotions the way that humans do. In fact, they are really defined by logic. He shares that there are others like him on Earth studying humans, trying to gain this understanding. But for their people, they don't really experience emotions. They rather operate pretty heavily on logic and rationality. Having said that, logic, of course, can be stemming from any number of places. It's not a guarantee. He and his people, however, view it as entirely logical in the vein of if you can help someone and are capable of it, the logical thing is to do so. Dennis suspects that Rontes is really pretending to believe he's an alien in order to avoid trouble with the law, but nevertheless allows him to stay in the hospital. However, as Dennis continues to interact with Rontes, trying to treat him, and sees the impact that Rontes is having with the fellow patients and others around, he is becoming less certain that Rontes is in fact delusional and wonders at his actual origins. As far as the type of sci-fi this certainly falls into drama, more along the lines of cerebral philosophical. The film sort of demonstrates the reality that nothing exists in a vacuum. While Dennis is seeking to notice or catch on to fumbles or flaws in Rontes and how he presents himself and what he claims that he is, all the while Rontes is having his own impact, and it is undeniable and really throws into doubt the skepticism that Dennis and other doctors are bringing to this. As far as the specific sci-fi unique elements, again, it's a cerebral approach for this film. Rather than specific items or inventions, this film centers around Rontes and his assertions on his own alien nature. And also, you're seeing this impact that is undeniably being felt by the people he interacts with. This is not a film that seeks to have a concrete answer to the conundrum that Rontes presents. Rather, it prefers to remain enigmatic and explore what the possibilities could be. What does it say about a person to dismiss his claims? And what does it say about someone who considers them, who gives them space and thought and deliberation. On a larger scale, what systems of thought are we truly running on? How do we look at and assess what has been labeled normal, acceptable, healthy? The film references a 1940 Argentinian novel. Let me double check. La Invención de Morel by Adolfo Bioy Casares. Hopefully pronunciation all right. Dennis believes that Rantes is drawing inspiration from this novel, which is quite well known actually. When I looked it up, I discovered it's considered a pivotal work of literature. It was the breakthrough novel for this author's career and has also served as inspiration and been adapted into other films. After checking the book's synopsis, I can see why Dennis thought that Rantes was drawing inspiration and basing his claims around a novel like this. I won't give anything away. It feels like it would be spoilers. You can always go check the book out for yourself. Another element in the film is the psychiatric hospital, where the setting is generally at throughout the entire film. Undoubtedly, it's instantly recognized for anyone in Argentina, but for the rest of the world, there's no obvious tie-ins in the film that showcase that location's significance. Open and operating since 1863, this hospital is a genuine hospital known, shortened usually as El Borda, and it is the most well-known and largest institution of its type in Argentina. I couldn't really find anything further, but I do wonder what difficulties or accommodations were needed to gain access for filming there. Hombre, Mirando, Sudeste is a gorgeous film for introspection. It's also been subject to some serious controversy and almost certainly intellectual theft. When the film came out in 1986 in Argentina, it did have some mild success, but it didn't really gain further notice internationally. Then in 2001, the US sci-fi film K-Pax was released. The story of K-Pax was ridiculously similar. Too similar to be believed as coincidence. Then it came out that the film K-Pax was actually an adaptation of the 1995 book K-Pax by the author Gene Brewer. It looks to have been a fairly faithful adaptation because the book, again, far too similar with the entire storyline, the aim of the plot. Too much was similar for that compared to Hombre, Mirando al Sudeste. The Argentinian director of the original film, Alicio Subiela, he eventually found out and was incensed at what seemed to be clear theft of his original ideas, and he proceeded to sue Gene Brewer and also others involved with the development of the film K-Pax as well. Sadly, the trial continued to stretch out and out and out, and Subiela did not have the funds to keep pursuing it. He eventually had to drop the case. Even though he could not continue pursuing that, he claimed until his death in 2016 that Gene Brewer and everyone involved with adapting to the film were absolutely guilty of plagiarizing his work. It's very likely for anyone in the US, they may have been far more likely to be aware of the film K-Pax versus the Argentinian film. Both of them have someone who shows up at a psychiatric hospital and has a doctor assigned to them after they state that they are an alien projected to study humans. The doctor assigned to this presumed delusional person is, of course, trying to poke holes in that, and yet the patient has an undeniable impact on the patients around them, other people, and it starts to make one reconsider dismissing what they're saying. In my personal opinion, this film is a brilliant, thought-provoking experience. I find that I usually appreciate films that aren't afraid to explore ideas rather than get into an ending with a very neatly tied off conclusion. Even before I was aware of the depth of the controversy with K-Pax, I first watched Hombre, Mirando al Sudeste and then K-Pax, and I found K-Pax honestly an unsatisfying watch. K-Pax was all too willing to have the very neat conclusion rather than being comfortable with gray areas and deliberately ruining the cultivation of thought and consideration. So learning more about what really does seem like an unsubtle work of plagiarism of Subuelo's work really only sunk K-Pax further for me. I've noticed more than one US adaptation or remake of films from other countries that then chooses to be more straightforward in story and the ending. It's such a shame. Clearly, the original film or the previous adaptation inspired people who wanted to then make it in the US, but to then ruin it by simplifying it and eliminating nuance and complexity, what's the point? Regardless, this original Argentinian film is a quiet unfurling of beliefs and assumptions. With the film challenging Dennis and others who see Rantes as unusual and even alien, all while not believing his claims, it makes it a really interesting vehicle for challenging anyone watching it on their own hidden assumptions. I've absolutely rewatched this film a few times over the years, and it never fails to give me ideas to contemplate. Want to watch it for yourself? I don't blame you. In fact, I even encourage it. When I last checked, the film was currently streaming on Fossum and Amazon Prime. And if that's no longer the case, anytime in the future, well, that's what JustWatch.com is for, isn't it? Now, I've been doing a release schedule for Seawall with movie spotlights every couple of weeks. But I'm also aiming to start putting out other, more varied content during the off weeks. All of that to say that the next piece that's going to come out is going to be the first of one of those new types. I don't have a good name for it, but functionally, the lists. A share of 5 sci-fi films in a specific category. And believe you me, there are some weird categories that you can start looking at. So, with list number 1 to unveil next, I will see you soon.